Alright, so we get serial killer movies every year, we get shark movies every year, so it only seems fair that we finally get a movie that merges those two things together, am I right? Dangerous Animals is the latest shark-themed horror movie, and it's about a savvy and free-spirited surfer who's abducted by a shark-obsessed serial killer. Held captive on his boat, she must figure out how to escape before he carries out a ritualistic feeding to the predators below. So for better or worse, I'm a pretty big fan of the shark subgenre of horror movies. There's just something so addicting about the simplicity of them. You know, person goes in water, shark eats person, carnage ensues. When you boil it down though, there really aren't that many good ones outside of Jaws, Deep Blue Sea, The Shallows, and my personal guilty pleasure that is The Meg, but that doesn't stop me from gobbling up every new entry that comes along like a great white on the 4th of July. So when I heard that the next one we were getting was about an Australian guy who takes tourists on diving tours, but his real passion is dishing out snack time to everyone's favorite apex predator, I knew this movie was going to be a ride. And after seeing the film for myself, Dangerous Animals is pure junk food entertainment. What it lacks in actual substance, it makes up for in totally unserious, intention-filled shark mayhem. When it comes to the performances here, the reason you're watching this movie in the first place is to see Jai Courtney as this unhinged serial killer whose weapon of choice is sharks for some reason. So much of these straightforward concept horror thrillers rely on a good villain to carry us through the runtime, and he definitely hits the mark in that regard with this role. He's kind of like if you mixed Steve Irwin with Buffalo Bill, spewing out random animal facts one second and serving up human entrees to his little fish buddies the next. He's menacing, he's funny, and he's super addicting to watch. Pretty much everything you could possibly want from a villain in a movie like this. The rest of the cast isn't really anything to write home about and just helps us to get from point A to point B. Hassie Harrison plays our main character that finds herself trapped on this maniac's boat, and Josh Houston plays her love interest. The two of them bounce off each other well enough to get things in motion and give us a reason to care about their survival, which is all that's really required of them, but at the end of the day, you're here for Jai Courtney and his man-eating companions. When it comes to the story they decided to go with here, it's pretty bare bones, which is what you kind of want in a movie like this. We don't need some Inception-level narrative getting in the way of all the blood and the guts. They do leave a subtle trail of breadcrumbs to peel back the curtain a bit so we can find out a little more about what makes this serial killer tick and why he likes doing what he's doing, but even then, it's still mostly all left up for interpretation. And maybe the most important part in this whole project actually working is that it's totally in on the joke. It knows how ridiculous this concept is and what you're expecting when you buy a ticket to go see it. And with a crisp 90-minute runtime, pretty much all the fat is trimmed out of this thing so you can get exactly what you're paying for. Now, I'm not saying that the story is airtight and without its various plot holes or anything like that, but everything just plays out in such an entertaining way that you'll find yourself being a little bit more forgiving when you put it under the microscope. When it comes to the actual horror elements at play here, you should have a pretty good idea of what you're getting yourself into with this one before even sitting down in the theater. If you don't like the ocean, if you don't like the gore, it's gonna be a good idea to sit this one out, but if you're one of the sickos, you'll be happy to hear that there's blood and body parts flying all over the place. I actually think they could have given us even more kills throughout the film, but what we do get here is still pretty satisfying. And the cinematography is definitely a bright spot in the film here during those tense moments, and since a couple of the kills we get are shown to us from the point of view of our serial killer's video camera, that tight framing really makes them feel claustrophobic, even though they're out in the middle of the ocean. I will say though, I wish there were a few more scenes that actually took place in the water. Most of the time, we're seeing the sharks do what they do best from the deck of the boat, and that's probably due to budgetary constraints more than anything else, but getting the money shot once or twice from the sharks playing field might have upped the brutality a bit. Overall, guys, Dangerous Animals is a good old-fashioned fun time at the movies. Jai Courtney dishes out the most addicting performance of the entire summer as this serial killer who uses sharks to do his dirty work for him. There's blood, there's gore, there's tension, and even though it's also ridiculous, they somehow strike the right tone to pull it off. Getting a new shark movie in theaters during the summertime has pretty much become an annual tradition at this point, but it's a rare occurrence that it's actually a good one. Dangerous Animals gets a Sully score of 3.5 stars. So that's my review of the latest shark movie. What do you think is your favorite film in the genre other than Jaws? I think I have to go with Deep Blue Sea, but let me know in the comments below what you think. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys at the next one.